light of the Halloween spirit, today we are going to be drawing some Hollywood monster movie portraits. So, we got to include this guy. But what I thought would be fun if we can make this into a little lesson, of course, because that's what my videos are about. And we can kind of talk a little bit about, since these characters are so iconic and they have such a great look to them, we can talk a little bit about caricatures and how do you really kind of come up with something that's iconic and symbolic that has that portrait look, but you get to add a little bit of your own twist and taste to it. So caricatures are something we all know, right? We've all been to theme parks, carnivals, sometimes on the side of the street, where people are out there and they're drawing caricatures of people. They're not just funny drawings. They obviously are in ideal, funny, and really cool to look at. But what they are is they're kind of a play on what the artist is seeing. So it's not just something random. They didn't just kind of draw this. If you've ever been wondering, like, what's the process? What they're doing is they're picking a characteristic of the person and they're really playing it up. It becomes the dominant feature of their face. Here we have Liam Neeson, right? And he's really playing up, Liam Neeson has a really big nose, so they're playing that up for sure. They're giving him this really playful and big cheek and sharp jaw shape, right? They're playing up his forehead size, his hairline. Where does his hairline start? All of these things become the caricature artist's playground. It's not necessarily being mean because, you're kind of signing up for being characterized by these people. Over here we have, I believe, Mick Jagger. And what they're doing is they're really playing up his iconic lip and facial movement, right? When he sings, he kind of has this really big open mouth, perched kind of lip look. And so really, other than that, if you guys can see, this is the dominating factor of this picture. Everything up here is pretty subtle. Obviously it's a little stylized, it's a little caricatured, but it's all about that lip and mouth open movement within this picture. So how do you get started with caricatures? Well, with characters, like I was mentioning with the last pictures, what you want to do is you want to pick something that you're going to intentionally play up the most. There's going to be certain things that you might want to play up all together, like you might want to do a little bit of a crooked nose, a crooked smile, whatever it is, but there has to be that dominating factor. So for this one, this artist looked over here at this picture, or maybe he was looking at the person live and in front of him, and what he saw was, as you can see down here, he saw a dominant big forehead. So now he took that and he made it the caricature moment of the picture. He gave him double the size of his forehead, but it still works to look just like our reference image over there, because naturally the person does have a bit of a big forehead. And so when you play it up and then you still follow some of his other features, you still get something that looks completely crazy, but somewhat similar. So just taking another look at this really quick, you can see here, we have our reference over here, and we're looking at someone who a little bit bigger of a person, wears glasses. What are the features we're looking at? So we're playing up the face size, nice big cheekbone there, cheek kind of puff, just different kind of characteristics that they're looking at playing up. His hairstyle. What can you do with this picture to, in a way, playfully make fun of the person? Now, another thing you need to know in order to do caricatures is shape dynamics. So what you want to do when you first get into a caricature, when you're looking at a person, is you want to decide your shape. Some people say there's a set number of shapes that caricature artists choose from. I think it's kind of just a in the moment kind of thing. You can see here they kind of went with somewhat of a potato shape for that bottom one, and then really wanted to emphasize that nose in the picture. So that's what they went with, and then they were able to play up those dynamics, right, with that big nose, the potato shape. Over here they went with a little more of a realistic approach, but then you can see when they actually went to the drawing, they played things up. They played up that cheekbone, they played up the eye size, right? So not so over characterized, but still played up on certain features, and they started with an underlined shape that was going to lead their drawing. And lastly, this isn't a caricature, but this is more of a stylized portrait, but what it does is it kind of shows pushing the form, right? So you can see this is our original reference right here. Just pretty model lady, right? But so what we're doing in order to push the form is we've pushed her neck forward a little bit more, right? We elongated her neck, made it a little slimmer, and then we're playing up certain features like her cheek coming out. It's not that prominent, but over here, check it out. Look how much they really push out that form. So we're really playing on the silhouette, thinking of things as shapes first, right? So you can kind of see that all this hair, it's one block of a shape, not all the frizz and all this stuff that's coming out over here, because that doesn't read naturally and more beautifully in a drawing, right? So we're all about kind of keeping our items clean and readable. Otherwise, little things played up, just kind of like the angle of the nose, the lips kind of being a little more perched there, and then the eye size and stuff like that. So you want to add your style. You want to be playful, and we're definitely not going to be worried about being mean because these are movie monsters here. So they're already pretty much characterized, but now we're going to play them up in our own way. So kicking it off here, we are going with the most iconic, or at least one of the most iconic movie monsters that we have out there, right? With the classic Frankenstein, black and white. So again, what I'm thinking about when I start these is I'm just going to do a generic start shape. Here I was kind of thinking of, well, really I wanted to just play up the forehead. We know that Frankenstein has a pretty huge forehead. The forehead that they put onto the actor was all prosthetic, so it really just lengthened his forehead a ton. So if I'm going to make a caricature and I'm going to focus on a feature that I really want to play up, well, probably going to be the forehead for the most part with Frankenstein. So that's kind of where I was starting with. So I started with a generic kind of, maybe not too unrealistic of a shape. And then I just kind of started to play it in. Now, definitely draw light when you're starting a caricature, especially if you're new to it, because there are going to be changes that you want to make along the way once you start drawing in other features. So my plan is to draw that big forehead, but I want to make sure I can fit all his features on first. So I'm going to play around with drawing some of these things in here. You're going to see me erase a lot as I kind of go through my thought process here while drawing. And then I'm going to end up shrinking this later and making the forehead bigger. So if you are following along with me, make sure you have extra room on top of that sketchbook of yours, because I will play up that forehead a little more. All right, so features that I'm thinking about. That really sloped over brow line, I wanted to play that up. Just because of how hard that shadow is in there, I really wanted to play that up as an aesthetic on this character, so I wanted to actually have it poke completely out of the face in front of his hairline and everything. How droopy and almost tired looking those eyes were. I really wanted to make sure I incorporated that notion in there too. So kind of made him a little more big and bug-eyed, but again, you're just playing up the features how you see fit. Cool thing about this is you should definitely know your proportions, but your proportion knowledge is here 100% just to break it. So if you're someone that has been new to this, maybe if you've seen some of my proportion head videos or something like that, well, now's the time to go in and break it. You don't have to have the eyes in the middle of the head anymore. So feel free to have fun with that. All right, so kind of looking at things, what can I connect as a piece to here? So I saw that he had these really nice lines coming down from his nose, and I wanted to incorporate that a little more into his mouth, and then kind of signify that into his chin as well. So what I'm doing is getting rid of a little information there, so that way I can make his chin and his mouth almost like as a separate piece from his face, right? And then I can start to build a little more of his face around that. If I were to animate this or something, having that separate mouthpiece would actually make it a lot easier for me to have Frankenstein doing his open mouth noise thing. So that is something to think about if you're going to take these drawings to another level. All right, little corrections here and there. And now what I'm thinking is I really want to fit in that forehead that I'm promising myself. So a little shrinkage there on the size. And I'm going to come in and just start anew on that forehead. So I want to build it up nice and high. Remember, we're looking at him from below, so we're thinking a little bit about perspective here. We do have a little forced perspective on him. So You know, it's like you're looking at a round object from below. So you see that object nice and round. It's Frankenstein, so I kind of played with a little bit of pointed edges and stuff like that. And of course he has that hairline on there. I wanted to give him less hair, so I just kind of really made that hairline nice and thin. And I wanted to play up his ears too in some sort of way, so I kind of made them a little smaller than you might think and a little droopier. Perspective wise, I could have dropped these ears a little bit lower in relation to the eyes. If you look on the picture, the ears are a lot lower than the eyes because again, he's tilting his head up. So there is a foreshortened pose happening there that I kind of could have played up, but I did not. But anyways, we're gonna finish up this portrait here. So I'm just gonna add a little more detail on his hair. See how that kind of fits into place. And you wanna add in some of those movie features, right? So you don't see too much on this picture. Again, it is black and white, so it's tough to kind of see everything, so to speak, some of the information on there. But I know that Frankenstein is a pieced together monster, right? He's made from other humans' bodies parts from cemetery, so I could add that into my feature, right? I know this about him, I know this about his character, so I get to kind of add it in there. So I just threw in some extra stitches and scars and stuff. All right, gonna add on a little bit there just so it's not a floating head, and we'll move on to our next portrait. So naturally we have to go from Frankenstein to Frankenstein's bride, right? Hugely different picture. We don't have such a gruesome pieced together kind of person here, so to speak, at least in terms of the face, right? So now I'm kind of thinking of different ways to play this up. So I'm looking for her features, okay? I'm trying to separate myself from the idea of saying I need to draw this girl pretty or whatever it is. So I'm gonna look past that characteristic and just draw what I'm seeing at first. Things I'm noticing is prominent cheekbones. Could have been done with makeup, but we see prominent cheekbones on this picture. A little bit of a cleft chin right in there, so I kind of want to play that up too. What I did there, if you guys can see me fix my mistake, was I didn't have my center line in, and it's always important to have that center line in to really solidify your drawing. Otherwise things are going to get slanted. Sometimes if that's on purpose, that's fine. It wasn't my intention, so I didn't want to have one chin drooping off to the side or something like that. All right, so I noticed her lips were nice and prominent, so I wanted to throw those in nice and big, play that up a little bit. She doesn't have that big of a nose. Her nose is not a prominent feature on her face, so I kind of wanted to play that down a little bit. So just kind of gonna drop it in lower, a little bit closer to the mouth, and then we can kind of play up the eyes a little bit more. So just a little indication of the nose here. Again, these are the features that I'm seeing and playing up. If you guys were to want to go for a big nose, that's completely how you should take it. All right, so making sure I get my eyes at least somewhere on the same line. Give myself a basic shape so that way I don't start from nothing, right? It's easier to build on top of something than it is to build on top of just plain white paper. And I wanted to play up her eyes. She looks like she has nice big eyes. So I kind of wanted to play up that feature there. So playing with that makeup that they had going on, the mascara, and then working in some of those eye folds. And fitting it in. So just to kind of give her that innocent Frankenstein's bride look going on, and then really play up any features you wanted. So for me, it was that big eyes. And I really liked how thin they kind of had her eyebrows for this. So I drew those in and kind of kept them nice and pencil thin there. A little bit of a curious look. All right, so I was thinking elongate that neck a little bit, right? Because that's a prominent way to characterize someone. If you can see on that face, I just drew across. So always draw through your drawings if you're going to try to make things start from the same point. So I didn't want to have the hair start on the left side completely lower than on the right side. So I drew that line across to keep my stuff consistent. And now we have to kind of separate this from just being a caricature of someone with a giant fro or something like that. So the characteristic of the Bride of Frankenstein, and you can't really see it too much in this picture because of the highlights and the lighting that they had going on, but she had a nice significant white stripe going on both sides of her head. So again, these are things that I can add regardless of if I can see them or not, because this is my picture and I can play it up however I would like. So I'm kind of just figuring out a little bit of where I want to place it, how crazy do I want to go with it. So I really like the way I accomplished it on the right side. So let me fix my left side a little bit here. Make that stripe more obvious. There we go. And then to signify that it's white, I'm going to add some tone in here. If you guys are working right now with a pencil, make sure to use that side of the pencil and just tone it in. Try not to think of it too much. You're just going for a basic shade. You just want to show one side is darker than the other. All right, so for the most part, you can see that we kind of achieved the look that we're going for here. I probably could have gone much bigger on the hair. I could have made the face smaller, whatever it is. These are things that you can play up as well. I noticed her lips are nice and prominent and dark, so I want to play with that as well. Catch that highlight on the lipstick there. Play up the eyes a little bit. There you go, there's that magic shine in there. It works every time. And just because I am afraid of floating heads, even though we're drawing monsters, I'm going to give them a little bit of a shoulder. Finish off that shirt cuff, the shirt collar. And we're going to move on to our next classic movie monster of the day. Alright guys, so I have an actual monster looking monster here. So, Creature from the Black Lagoon. This one's tough. This one's really tough because it is as characterized as it really can be, but you can definitely push this so far. So what I was trying to do, and I think I could have definitely pushed this further looking back, but let's just talk through the process here. I just wanted to push out prominent features. So I like the fact that he had these like really rigid and bulged out eyebrows on him, like some fishy eyebrows. And then I just like the silly look on his face right there. I mean, it's a plastic or like some sort of like a silicone mask or whatever it was made of right back in the day. So it looks funny. There's no way for it not to look funny. It's a practical costume. They didn't have the effects back then that we do now, so this is what you get. And with some cool lighting, he looked pretty scary, but when it's well lit and you can kind of see some of the characteristics or the funniness of it, well, you can play it up. So I really wanted to, he's a fishish kind of creature to me. He lives in the lagoon, he lives in the water, so I wanted to really play up those fish qualities. And then one thing I noticed as I was drawing this is all of his folds under his chin there. So I decided that he could be very significant with those double chins. He has a lot of ridges, a lot of, I don't know how you describe it, fins or coming off of him. So you can play that up a lot. You can make him a lot more hard-edged if you want. I was just kind of following the, lighthearted movie magicness of it from the old days. So again, I was playing up these eyebrows a lot, so that was kind of my prominent shape that I wanted to make sure I captured in this picture before I moved on to other things. It was pretty much the eyebrows and the mouth was where I wanted to play. And as you can see, I already got those going. So from here, I'm going to play up the eye. So I thought it would be funny if I just gave him like a really teeny tiny eye on his face there. And you can see when I finished, it kind of actually made it look a little more fish-like. I kind of worked for him in a way. But he has this kind of glow around his eye on the eyelid, so I just went in and added that really quick. There you go. And just darkening that eye a little bit. And so now we can kind of come in. So I have my facial features down, the ones that I wanted. So now I get to come in and just kind of play and see what information I really want to add, take away, play up a lot more, right? So I think I could have pushed this one a lot further. This one isn't what I'd consider a classic caricature, but I think he was just such an iconic character already. It's hard to deviate too far from the path and still have the Black Lagoon monster. So here you go. I gave him about double the amount of chins that he had. I just thought it was really funny as a design choice that they gave this guy double chins. So for me, I had to play that up. There's no other choice in the matter. Other than that, now I'm just kind of looking for his little details that they had carved into the face. So kind of figuring out my form a little bit. And I want to fill out those gill situation in the back of his head. I'm not exactly sure what they're for, but get them in there. And all right, so if you guys can see, you can see that this is a headpiece, right? It's a mask. So I'm gonna come in and kind of add in at least the bust of this mask, just to kind of really home in on this movie magic right here, this monster movie magic. So that was the biggest part. I just kind of wanted to get that in down there. And there we go. We have a mask that we can put on. If you guys have ever seen like any behind the scene features of this is what the mask looked like essentially. And then they designed the rest of the costume, so it didn't look like a mask. It looked like the ridges on his body, but you can, if you kind of see, you can figure it out for yourself once you know. Not to spoil it for you. Not to spoil the monster movie magic that it was. I'm sure the Black Lagoon creature was as real as they come, right? They just hired a real creature from the Black Lagoon and had him act for them. It was good times back in the day. All right, so now I pretty much have this all figured out. So I'm just going to go in and add some final touches. Realistically, I can only play this up so much in my head. And, you know, now that, again, like I said in the beginning, now that I think about it, I could have probably played up a lot more features. But for me, I just kind of like the idea of copying somewhat of the aspect of this creature because it's drawing monster portraits and he's a pretty good caricature already. So finish up the little details here, add all the wrinkles and folds that you can possibly fit. And I got one more for you guys today. So here we have Elvira, and I'm just going to be straight up and honest with anyone here because I know she's kind of a fan favorite of a lot of people. She definitely has like a cult following out there. I know absolutely nothing about her. So if I say anything wrong, go ahead and correct me in the comment section and do all that YouTube hazing that you need to do in order to correct me on your favorite person here. But just speaking from what I can see, I don't really know anything about her character. I don't know if she is a vampire or anything, but I'm just going to play up the features that I see. So really, really big hair. So what I wanted to do in this case, a little less what I did with Frankenstein, but I'm going to play up that the hair is huge. So I'm going to give her a nice small face. Now what they did is they really like whitened and powdered that face in. So something you're seeing is that her nose almost disappears into her makeup, right? That was intentional. So I wanted to kind of play with that. So I just made her nose almost non-existent, just a little bit of a nose there. And you can see that they really played up her makeup past her own eyes. I don't know if it was just the style that they were going for or if they were trying to like make her eyes seem bigger as an illusion. So I just kind of chose that I'm going to make them just that big. I'm just going to make really big, bulged out eyes. and just kind of play with what they were doing. Clearly they're playing up her cheekbones, so I threw in gigantic cheekbones, right? If you guys are wondering, really I'm just playing with a V shape for the face, and then I drew in some cheekbones on there. Alright, so from here, we just got to get that lip in. So I was kind of playing with the lip a little bit. And you can see kind of how it comes out, and then I corrected a little just by shrinking it down. I really like that her lip is kind of like crooked there. I think everyone has like a slight crook or lopsidedness to their mouth or some sort of feature on their face. And when you're doing caricatures, if you can notice that, it's a fun thing to play up. Now here's a tough one, is drawing teeth, and this could be a whole class on its own, but just to kind of keep it simple and basic here, when you're drawing teeth, keep it simple and basic. I know I just said that in a way of explaining this, but it really is the key to making teeth not look so weird, drawn out, outlined, ugly. You just have to make them like one solid shape, and then you can go in and carve out where you want things to be. So I kind of carved out her sharp teeth there, right? And just playing that up a little bit. I probably could have kept it like this, but I just thought it looked a little too off. So I'm gonna grab it and rotate it here in a second. It's kind of one of those things where you start moving on to other parts of the face before realizing what you're really trying to fix. So there we go. All right, a little more straight and narrow for me. So now I get to play up pretty much just the rest of the features, right? And the rest of the features, other than kind of giving the eye a little bit of tone, is the hair and, you know, a little bit of the body. She was all about the costume, I've noticed from the pictures that I was looking at as reference. So I think for this one, the body features are important to play up her character. Now I was aiming for like just below Marge Simpson type of hairstyle in terms of length there. So again, though, I don't even think, honestly, I played it up enough. Like, it almost looks like the actual hair that she has. So play it up, right? You can go way heavier than I went. Or I could even shrink her face down a little bit more, which would have gave for an interesting caricature here. But anyways, just trying to think of that hair as a nice solid shape. Just going to fill in some quick information here of her arms. You know, I noticed that, like, kind of filling in some shadow and information there. Anything to make her face seem a little bit lighter and brighter, because you can tell that that was, like, clearly their intention. They wanted that face to really, really be the lightest part of her body. And now we're going down to the costume a little bit. They play up her chest a lot. It's part of her costume, so it's going to be part of the caricature. Again, this is something that you could play up a lot, or you could play it down, considering whatever your interests are there. All right, so just kind of getting a little bit of the features in. Once you have a feeling for where you want to go with it, then you can kind of start to darken in, right? This is why I always say go nice and light. And a great framing element for this character is going to be that hair. The dark, dark hair against the super light, pale skin that they were going for. It's a really great contrasting note on there, tone-wise. So go ahead and shade in that hair. All right. Just kind of get it in there, frame the face, and you can see that the face already becomes more prominent just because it has something dark next to it. So now the face is a little more stronger in the foreground. And so we can play with that. So last details I'm going to add here is I thought that red lipstick was just really, really characteristic of hers. So I went in here and colorized the lips. So you guys can see it kind of flipping colors there. That's me choosing a color mode, or sorry, it's a blending mode on Photoshop. And just kind of figuring out where I liked it. I thought this was fine, so we threw that in. And that's going to be the final touch on this one, guys. Add a little bit of highlight, and then we are good. Thank you guys for joining me on this Halloween adventure. I realize that YouTube does not exist in a timeline here, so you could be watching this in summer of 2025 right now. But if you are watching this with me right now, happy Halloween, guys. I hope you have a great time. Thank you again for watching. If you guys have any suggestions for future videos, of course, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.